The forest stretched out in gentle silence, a place he had walked through every day for decades. Far from human settlements, deep within the land people feared and called the Demon Forest, this was his healing spot, unchanging, peaceful, familiar. As he followed his usual path, a strange feeling made him slow his steps. Something was different today. He stopped and looked ahead, noticing a figure lying among the grass and flowers. A girl was there, completely still, her dark hair spread across the ground. The sight instantly shattered the calm he was used to. As he drew closer, recognition surfaced without hesitation. He knew this girl, and the quiet forest suddenly felt heavier than it ever had before. He moved closer and saw her face clearly, the shock hitting him all at once. Noah Gran. The name rang through his mind as disbelief shattered his calm. His eyes widened beneath the hood. This was his Oshi. It's mean, a favorite person or character you enthusiastically support. Seeing her lying there, his mind raced in frantic circles. He vaguely remembered an episode where she had gone missing in the demon world before the main story began, and for a moment he tried to convince himself this was just that she would wake up and find her way home on her own. But as he watched her stir weakly among the flowers, doubt crept in. With a quiet sigh, he stepped forward and carefully lifted her into his arms. Leaving her here didn't feel right. He knew himself well enough to admit it. There was no way he could just abandon her, not like this. Carrying her gently, he moved through the quiet forest without hesitation. He felt no regret about the life he now lived, reborn as a monster far removed from humanity. This world had its own order, its own rules. Beyond the forest lay a different reality, one protected by those known as guardians, warriors who stood at the borders of humanity's survival zone, fighting back the monsters that threatened it. He knew of them well, and of the role they played. As he carried her onward, fragments of memory surfaced, scenes from a game he once loved. Noah's personal route had always stood out to him, filled with quiet resolve and moments of fragile honesty. He remembered her voice, telling him not to follow, yet thanking him for being there all the same. This world was no stranger to him. It was the very setting of Utopia of the Fallen, the game he had devoted countless hours to in his past life. Every rule, every danger, every fate felt painfully familiar. Even knowing how this story could end, his resolve didn't waver. If someday his path led to being struck down by the very person he admired most, he decided he would accept it without regret. The memory shifted to an earlier time, far from the forest. In the Northern Territory, at an orphanage in Rarahai town, Noah worked quietly through the night. She followed orders without complaint, finishing the sewage work and accepting another task the moment it was given. Even when told to clean the latrines, she simply nodded and kept going. She endured it all with downcast eyes, clutching her tools as if they were all she had. The caretakers spoke casually about her future, urging her to work harder so she could be adopted sooner, unaware of how tightly she held herself together. Outside the orphanage walls, life moved on as usual, while Noah remained there, small, obedient, and waiting, her resolve barely holding beneath the weight of exhaustion and hope. The memory turned harsh and painful, her body thrown to the ground as punishment. She coughed and trembled, insisting through tears that she had done nothing wrong, that she had completed her work. The answer she received was cold and absolute. This, too, was their duty, because she was a slave. The chain rattled in the silence as she stared up in fear, the truth pressing down on her harder than the pain ever could. The memory sank even deeper. Noah stood silently with the chain tight around her neck, her eyes dull as realization slowly set in. She was paraded forward, spoken of like an object, praised as a fine slave while others bowed and exchanged pleasantries over her fate. When a man stepped closer and declared he wanted her, her head lifted slightly in confusion. Fingers tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze as he decided her worth with casual certainty. The memory softened for a moment. After being sold, Noah was given warm food, clean clothes, and a bed. Like a fragile dream she might wake from at any second. To her, this was heaven. This was happiness. That brief kindness became something she clung to with everything she had. So when the pain returned, when she was bound again, arms raised, the whip hanging heavy in the air, she endured it without screaming. She told herself it was fine, that she could bear it. One day, Noah and the other children were led beyond towering walls, past the edge of the residential zone and into a place they didn't recognize. Fear spread among them as they realized they were outside, standing at the boundary of the demon world. Noah's eyes widened as she asked why, desperately searching for her master. Confusion turned to panic when they were told this was an order from their lord, that they were being set free. A noble stepped forward, taking control of the situation. With a steady voice, he silenced the chaos and prepared to explain. From atop the wall, their former master looked down with bored disdain, calling the world dull, and thanking his slaves for their service as if this were a gift. His voice carried easily as he announced his final amusement, a little playtime, just to entertain himself. Noah stood among them, staring ahead as the truth settled in. This wasn't freedom. It was disposal. Below, the ground trembled. Monsters emerged, snarling and drooling as they closed in on the children. As screams rang out, Noah forced her shaking body to move. She raised her hand on instinct, fear sharpening her focus, and something answered. Light flared, raw and unstable, bursting from her palm and slamming into the creature rushing her. It wasn't clean or controlled, but it was enough to drive it back. Shock rippled through the onlookers above. Magic, something she was never taught, had awakened in desperation. The monsters didn't fall easily, but for the first time, she wasn't helpless. And in that instant, survival stopped being a wish and became a fight. Noah's hands shook as she gathered what little strength she had left, her teeth clenched while rage drowned out the laughter echoing from above. Tears streaked her face, but her eyes stayed sharp. She fought back again and again, magic flaring wildly as she screamed her defiance into the chaos. She wouldn't die like this. Around her, children fell one by one, their cries fading into silence. Watching them collapse, something inside Noah hardened. The grief hurt, but it no longer stopped her. To survive, she forced herself to see it differently. They were burdens. If she hesitated for them, she would die too. With that cruel realization, Noah dragged herself forward, choosing life even as everything precious was stripped away. Surrounded by monsters, Noah collapsed against the base of a tree. One by one, the others were gone. She was the only one left. Even as darkness crept into the edges of her sight, her breath ragged and her vision fading. Her body refused to respond, her limbs trembling no matter how fiercely she willed them to move. But no matter what it took, no matter how broken she became, she had to survive. The monster loomed over her. But even then, she lifted her trembling hand. Magic flickered weakly around her fingers, fragile yet stubborn. Noah forced every last scrap of will into that one single thought. She didn't want to die. As the monster brought its full weight down on her, she screamed back with everything she had left. Power erupted from her outstretched hand, no longer weak or flickering, but violent and absolute. The blast tore through the creature's body mid-strike, shredding its body and hurling the remains across the ground. Blood and fragments scattered as the creature collapsed, lifeless before it could even touch her. The power didn't stop with a single strike. Even as her legs buckled and her scream tore raw from her throat, the magic kept pouring out of Noah, surging wildly beyond her control. Monsters that rushed her were blown apart mid-leap, their bodies shattered and flung away as the ground split beneath the force of her will. Her vision shook, her body screaming in protest, yet she kept standing, driven forward by nothing but desperation. Every breath burned, every movement hurt, but she lashed out again and again, instinct guiding her hand where thought no longer could. The slaughter finally ended. Noah staggered forward until her legs gave out, her bare feet sinking into soft grass scattered with small flowers. The air here was different, quiet, gentle, untouched by blood or screams. Sunlight filtered down in warm rays, butterflies drifting lazily through the breeze. She lifted her head, dazed, staring at the peaceful landscape before her. It was beautiful, so beautiful it felt unreal. For a fleeting moment, a fragile thought crossed her mind. As her eyes fluttered shut, one last, hollow realization surfaced. There were no monsters here, and she was finally alone. But her strength ran out at last. Her body collapsed heavily into the flowers, the world spinning as exhaustion dragged her down. Maybe this was heaven, a place without monsters, without pain. Noah opened her eyes, as she pushed herself up. Confusion clouded her thoughts. This wasn't the field of flowers, nor the place where she had collapsed. A faint sound reached her ears. A door creaked open. A massive boar-headed monster filled the doorway, its tusks gleaming as it leaned forward in surprise. She turned instinctively and froze. Her breath caught. She swallowed hard and eyes wide. Panic surged through Noah the instant she understood what stood before her. But the monster didn't attack. Instead, it spoke internally, remarking that she was finally awake. Noah froze, trembling, eyes locked on the hooded figure with glowing eyes. Before the monster could even react, the world itself seemed to answer her fear. Wood shrieked as the floorboards ripped free, furniture exploding upward as if seized by an invisible hand. Inside his head, the thought came instantly, yeah, figures this would happen. His thoughts raced, piecing everything together with uneasy certainty. If his memories from his past life were right, then this timing made perfect sense. Noah had awakened her ability. Telekinesis. Everything within her effective range, will bend to her will. Noah's fear fed the power surging out of her, and the room became a battlefield of flying debris. The debris surged toward him in a violent wave, planks, splinters, and shattered furniture screaming through the air. The monster didn't flinch. He lifted one hand. That was all it took. Flying debris were deflected aside in a clean, effortless motion. Noah's breath hitched as the last fragments fell harmlessly to the floor. With a simple wind magic, it can completely nullify her magic. Even though she had poured everything she had on that attack, Noah felt it then, a cold pressure sinking into her chest. This wasn't like the monsters she had fought before. This monster is on a completely different level. The invisible grip slammed into him without warning. Air crushed around his neck, tightening fast, snapping his thoughts into static. Inside his head, was she really trying to strangle him to death? The thought slipped in, absurdly calm. If I'm going to be killed by my Oshi, I'd die happy. That was what he used to think that, but he changed his decision and say, now it seems I won't be going that way. He stands over her, cloak drifting in the fading turbulence, glowing eyes fixed on her unmoving form. It's over now, she thinks calmly, not with triumph, but with certainty. Inside her head, a quieter voice stirs, one that remembers struggle, pain, endurance without reward. Shouldn't it have been okay for me to get just a small reward? She lies there, arms raised weakly, breath ragged. Her thoughts spill out in fragments, how she fought, how she always fought, how an ending like this feels unfair. At last, resignation wins. Fine, just do whatever you want. The monster calmly kneels as the boar's body hangs suspended, turning slowly in the air. Heat and wind coil together, precise and controlled, roasting the meat evenly. Fat drips and sizzles as the scent spreads through the room. Her fear shifts into confusion as she realizes the monster isn't attacking anymore. Something is happening. Across the room, she stares in disbelief. The fight that nearly killed her has ended not with execution, but with cooking. The monster works with quiet focus. Chunks of boar meat are neatly skewered, lifted into the air by a gentle spiral of wind. A thin ring of flame forms beneath them, rotating slowly so the meat cooks evenly. Fat crackles and drips, the smell rich and unmistakably food. Across the room, she can only stare. Her eyes track the floating skewers. The absurdity finally hits her all at once. Why is a monster cooking? The monster tilts his head slightly, glowing eyes fixed on her trembling expression. Why are you making that face, Noah? The thought stays locked inside him, quiet and confused. He had already checked her condition. Her body was overheated, drained to the brink, every sign pointing to collapse. Not wounded, just completely spent. Extreme exhaustion, and the conclusion had been obvious. She's ridiculously hungry. So he finishes arranging the skewers and guides the plate toward her. She freezes, staring at the meat inches from her hands, eyes wide, throat dry. Is he telling me to eat? Her stomach betrays her with a sharp ache, and she hesitates only a second longer before instinct takes over. She stares at the skewer, completely baffled. I don't get this at all. Okay, fine. You just want me to eat, right? Then I'll eat. She bites down hard, almost angrily, juice dripping down her chin. The taste hits, simple, smoky, unmistakably neat. Across from her, the monster stiffens. No seasoning, but it should be edible at least. He relaxes a fraction when he notices something. When Noah finally takes a bite, her body reacts before her mind does. The food isn't special or seasoned, but it's warm, filling, and real. After being chased, injured, terrified, and starving, that simple bite overwhelms her. She starts crying not because the meat tastes amazing in a gourmet way, but because it reminds her she's still alive. The tension she's been holding onto, fear of monsters, fear of dying alone, fear of collapsing, suddenly releases all at once. Her tears are from relief, exhaustion, and gratitude mixed together. She keeps eating even as she cries, because her hunger is real and her body desperately needs it. For the first time since everything went wrong, she feels safe enough to stop fighting and just eat. When she tastes the meat, the flavor feels comforting rather than exciting. That comfort hits her harder than she expects. Her body has been pushed past fear and hunger for too long, and the moment she finally eats something warm and filling, everything she's been holding back spills out. The wide, empty space around them emphasizes how small and vulnerable she is in that moment, and the monster stays beside her. The monster already knows about Noah's past and remembers being emotionally moved by her struggles in his previous life. Even after being reincarnated as a monster, those feelings didn't disappear. However, in this world, humans and monsters are supposed to be enemies, so he's been avoiding humans on purpose to stay out of trouble. Seeing Noah like this changes everything. She's exhausted, crying, clinging to him, and clearly at her limit. At that moment, the idea of rules, factions, or staying uninvolved stops mattering to him. Abandoning her now would feel unnecessarily cruel. So the conclusion he reaches is straightforward: he can't ignore her anymore, and he can't leave her to suffer. Helping her isn't a strategic choice or a moral debate, it's simply the only thing that feels right to him in that moment. Suddenly Noah called to him. Exhausted, hurt, and overwhelmed, she asks, "Are you on my side?" On the monster's side, he's realized just how badly she's been hurt, how close she was to breaking completely. Seeing her like this confirms his decision. Leaving her alone or pretending not to care is no longer possible. The monster does not speak. When he answers, of course, it's not spoken dialogue, but Noah understands his answer anyway. Her expression changes so strongly, she realizes that he's chosen her side. That certainty is what finally calms her. Her tears soften, and she manages a small, relieved smile as she says thank you. The monster is thrilled to see his Oshi like this, and makes a sound in a way that feels more like actual speech, or at least a voice-like response. That's why Noah suddenly looks surprised and asks, "You can talk? So you can understand words?" The monster turns his head slightly toward Noah as she asks this. He's confirming that he fully understands language, not just reacting emotionally or instinctively. She started to laugh and say, "This is so messed up. Ever since she was born, my life's been hell. Being treated like an object was normal, with no one to save me from this hell." Noah reflects on the situation and finds it ironic. The one who saved her isn't a human hero, but a monster. Instead of being scared, she's calm about it now. Her fear has already passed. She then asks the monster if he has a name. For her, a name means recognizing someone as a person, not just a monster. The monster is confused. He thinks she means a human name, but he explains, internally, that he doesn't have one in this life. He doesn't even fully understand what kind of monster he is. Noah doesn't care about that. She brightens up and decides she'll give him a name herself. The monster is shocked and flustered by the idea of getting a name from his Oshi. Noah thinks seriously about what to call him. She notices that he looks ghost-like, dark body, glowing eyes, quiet presence. Based on that, she comes up with the name Rei. It's cute and simple, and it fits his appearance. The explanation note shows it's a wordplay. Rei can mean spirit or ghost in Japanese, which matches how he looks and feels. His inner thoughts explode. He calls it simple-minded because the name Rei is straightforward and innocent, exactly the kind of name a kind, honest girl would choose. When Noah asks, "So you like it?" he turns away sharply and insists that he don't care, but his body language says otherwise. He notices that Noah looks genuinely happy, and that alone makes him feel happy too. That realization catches him off guard. Wait. He reflects on the contrast. Before, she was just someone he admired from afar, his Oshi. Now she's standing right in front of him, alive and smiling, because he saved her. That makes the situation feel very real and heavy to him. He admits something important in his thoughts. Because he's a monster, he can't properly express his feelings or say what he wants to say out loud. Instead, he chooses a simple action, offering her food again, as his way of caring for her. The monster makes a silent vow to himself. Even though he can't say it out loud, he decides that from now on, he will always stay on Noah's side and protect her. This is his true promise. They sit together casually, sharing food. It looks peaceful and ordinary, which contrasts with everything that happened before. Noah quietly thanks him. She understands, even without words, that he helped her and stood by her side. Noah calmly says, "But I can't stay here." Even though she's smiling gently and holding the skewer, her expression is serious. Rei is clearly caught off guard. He wasn't prepared for the idea that she would leave so soon, especially after everything that just happened. Noah says she's thinking of going back. She apologizes to Rei and admits that she wouldn't be able to survive in the demon world. Even though she doesn't remember any happy memories from her old world, but for some reason she feels like she have to go back. Noah steps away from the bed and says, "So, this is goodbye." She's calm, not dramatic. Her body language shows hesitation, but her decision is already made. Rei's face shows he's silently processing it. Noah stands at the door and admits it's hard for her to leave, but she's still going, and thanks Rei for the food and everything he done for her. Noah looks back one last time and softly says bye-bye. She's smiling, but her eyes are wet. She's resolved, yet sad. Rei stays behind, watching her go, clearly shaken but accepting her choice. Noah runs away from the cabin. Rei thinks to himself that she's serious, and decides he won't stop her if that's what she truly wants. Then a monster suddenly bursts out from the forest, lunging toward Noah. The attacking monster is blasted away mid-air. Rei moves faster than thought, grabbing Noah and pulling her out of danger. Noah cries out his name, shocked and confused. She thought he had accepted letting her go. But Rei answers clearly, not with words spoken aloud, but with action. He refuses to let her face this world alone. Noah asks if Rei is really coming with her. Rei answers simply and honestly, of course, he won't abandon her. He doesn't insist on controlling her path. Instead, he asks to stay by her side as her bodyguard, someone who protects rather than commands. Noah accepts. She smiles warmly and clutches his cloak. It shows trust and relief. She's no longer alone. They walk forward together, hand in hand. Noah thanks him sincerely, not just for the protection, but for choosing to stay. Noah casually brings up the earlier fight. She points out that the attack Rei used to save her didn't look like magic. She sounds curious, not afraid. Rei reacts internally, realizing she noticed more than he expected. Noah explains why she's asking. When she tried to escape before, she used magic, but it was completely useless against monsters. She knows magic alone can't kill them instantly, which makes Rei's one-shot attack stand out. Then she asks directly if Rei is an ability user, someone who uses special powers rather than magic, and says she wanted to see it, if it's okay. Suddenly Rei notices her wound, and steadily approach it to look. Noah starts to notice changes in her body. Her injuries are fading, and the pain is easing. Rei is thinking internally. He's checking her stamina and mental state and deciding to add a regeneration effect. Meanwhile, she realizes her wounds are healing on their own. She reacts in surprise, jumping up and exclaiming that she didn't expect Rei to have a recovery ability. Rei calmly confirms she's right. Noah then comments on the irony. She assumed he was a destructive type, but instead he has healing powers. Rei acknowledges the contrast. His scary appearance doesn't match what he can do. Rei explains internally that after living for decades as a monster, he experimented with many things out of boredom, and as a result, he learned how to use many kinds of healing. Noah smiles and points out the irony even more clearly, a monster whose power is to heal. Rei doesn't fully get what she means, but he notices she looks happy, and that alone makes it fine to him. To use an ability, a person must draw on holy energy inside their body. But, holy energy is a monster's weakness. Because of that, monsters normally can't use it at all. That's why, in this world, only ability users, humans, are supposed to be able to kill monsters. Then comes the twist. Rei explains that even though he's a monster, he somehow possesses holy energy anyway. That's why his attacks worked and why he can heal, something that shouldn't be possible. Noah explained the situation to him. She says, these are the fortress walls of Urag, where humans now live. And she used to live inside them. Rei explained, after monsters invaded, humanity was forced to retreat and survive behind those walls, and reflects that this place used to be part of the northern territory where people lived before it was abandoned. Noah tells Rei that from here on, border guardians protect the area, so she thinks she'll be safe going alone. She starts to suggest that Rei should turn back, worried about him crossing into human guardians guarding the borders. An attacker strikes from behind. A sword is driven straight into Rei's body, catching him completely off guard. And Noah's expression snaps into shock. The attack is fast and precise, clearly meant to kill him. Rei weakly reacts, realizing how bad the injury is. In his thoughts he calmly accepts it, saying, I guess this is the end for me, while Noah looks horrified and helpless. Rei snaps back from the brink of death. Even though he was just stabbed, he angrily rejects the idea of dying, thinking, like hell it would end like that. His tone shifts from resignation to fury. He confronts the attacker. Who the hell are you? The attacker reveals himself by moving in. He's a human. Rei notes that he expected humans to come after him eventually, but the timing is earlier than he planned for. Rei immediately understands the situation and calmly concludes that this kind of ambush is exactly what a border guardian would do. The human swordsman realizes something is wrong. Rei's magic core is healing instead of breaking. Rei calmly explains the rule of the world. Monsters normally die when their magic core is hit with holy energy. That's the standard way humans kill monsters. Rei points out that this is usually true, implying he's an exception. Rei prepares to move, thinking about making the attack, but the swordsman lunges in to finish Rei off. Noah rushes forward and physically blocks the swordsman, shouting for him to stop. She puts herself between the blade and the monster without thinking. Noah yells that the monster saved her life and begs the swordsman not to attack him. Noah turns toward the human, hands raised and use her ability. The swordsman stares in shock, thinking, an ability user. Shards of holy energy float in the air between her and the swordsman, holding him back. The swordsman recognizes her and says she's the one from yesterday. Noah realizes he's referring to the earlier incident where she escaped and caused trouble near the border. She connects the dots internally. He lowers his aggression slightly, and looks relieved and says he's glad Noah is safe. Noah notices his strange reaction and wonders why he's acting this way. The swordsman apologizes and admits that the situation back then was beyond what he can handle alone, and asks them to meet the division head. The swordsman then introduces himself properly. He apologizes for his earlier aggression and says his name is Wolstale. He explains that he's a rookie border guardian, newly assigned to the southern border this year. He then reassures Noah that he is glad to know she's alive, and that the division head would feel the same. They're heading inside the city walls, toward the guardians' living quarters. The young border guardian realizes the monster is coming with them and points it out. After what he just witnessed, he decides he can't leave the monster behind. Then he suddenly runs ahead, saying can't be helped then, and grabs a cloak and turns back toward the monster, clearly intending to hide him so he can be brought inside without causing trouble. Will has hidden the monster inside a large cloak, with his face barely peeking out. He then says they have no choice but to hide him, since guardians are ability users and would immediately recognize a monster otherwise. Meanwhile, Rai asks internally, how do I look right now? He suggests they get moving, meaning they'll proceed toward the city while keeping the monster concealed. She then introduces herself properly as Noah Gran. Will then start to explain, as you know that, all guardians are ability users. They arrive inside the city, and Will reminds them to stay quiet so the monster won't be discovered and eliminated. The buildings inside are large and imposing, showing the importance of this area. Noah, with the ray still hidden under the cloak, is nervous and amazed by the place's size. Will goes to meet the division head, calling out his name and approaching the doors confidently. He then opens the doors and says he's coming in, while someone inside tells him to wait for his reply at least. Division head comments that there's no point knocking if someone is just going to barge in anyway. Will immediately apologizes politely for his behavior and formally introduces Noah. Showing respect and nervousness, Noah steps forward awkwardly and introduces herself, clearly tense and unsure how to act in front of someone so important. The division head realizes that Noah is actually alive, which genuinely surprises and relieves him. He then apologizes, saying that the tragedy happened because the Guardians couldn't stop the feudal lord's atrocities. This shows guilt and responsibility on behalf of the system. Noah responds calmly, saying he doesn't need to apologize, and makes it clear that the blame lies with those who committed the crimes, not with him or the Guardians. The division head responds seriously, saying he understands, but still wants her to accept his apology properly. Noah tells him that, if that's how he feels, she'll accept his apology. Will then comments that the division head overthinks things, lightening the mood. The division head relaxes and smiles. Ray thinks it's a peaceful atmosphere and he's glad Noah is safe. Will bluntly tells that worrying over everything will wreck his mental health. Ray revealed that, even though Will looks calm now, back then he was deeply relieved from the bottom of his heart when he learned Noah is alive. Then the topic changes, and they talk about Noah's huge sack. Will asks Noah, if you please. Then Ray slips out of the sack and floats freely in the air, shouting I'm free. Will then explains that this situation was beyond what he could handle alone. Division head is surprised, and admits he didn't expect it to actually be a monster, especially a species he's never seen before. Noah explains clearly that Ray saved her before, and that he doesn't attack humans. She's standing close to him to show her trust. Division head accepts that, he notes Ray's traits are very different from known monsters, and that monsters haven't appeared like this in years, but he can't ignore Ray because he's a monster. Noah explains that Ray understands human language even though he can't talk. Division head directly asks Ray if he's on Noah's side. Ray's answer is simple and emotional, because she's my Oshi, and shakes his head in agreement. Ray himself is surprised by how things are unfolding. Division head is clearly overwhelmed. He admits this situation is far beyond what he expected. Division head says he need to hold an executive meeting as soon as tomorrow. But Will stops him, saying there's more information to deal with. He then confirms what he suspects, Noah has already awakened her ability. Noah answers softly, yes. Will then explains the consequence plainly. Since Noah has become an ability user, she is required to serve as a guardian. He asks her directly if she's prepared for that, because she won't be able to return to her old life. Noah answers honestly that it's fine, she has nowhere else to go anyway. Division head accepts Noah's situation and says she's welcome as a guardian. And until the executive meeting tomorrow, he tells them both to keep a low profile. As the conversation turns back to abilities, Noah casually drops an important fact. Ray is also an ability user. When Noah says Ray is also an ability user, Will and Stale react in total shock. But Noah and Ray are calm. Noah casually gestures as if it's no big deal, while Ray tilts his head, quietly confused by their reaction. Noah is alone in a bath. The quiet setting and steam show she's trying to calm down after everything that happened. Noah's face shows she looks troubled and overwhelmed. She's not relaxed, she's lost in thought. She thinks that so many unbelievable things happened in such a short time, and wonders if it's all really real. The house is shown from outside while Noah thinks, if I stay in a house like this, as she's imagining settling into her new life. Will is approaching from outside, and knocks on the door, and greets her politely, good morning, Noah-san. It's me, Will. Suddenly the door bursts open. A strong gust of wind explodes outward from inside the room. Will is shocked and thinks, why is wind coming out from inside? The force is clearly unnatural. The wind blast throws him off his feet and sends him flying down the corridor as he yells in surprise. Will realizes what caused the incident and turns toward Ray, calling him by his name. Ray stands there wearing an apron, surrounded by swirling air. Ray silently admits it, the burst of wind really was his doing. Ray realizes he opened the door without thinking, imagining some other guardian has come to caught him. Will, then startled and confused. Will looks into the kitchen and freezes in disbelief. Ray is calmly cooking, with a frying pan and food laid out, steam rising as if nothing strange is happening. He questions it outright, "You're really a monster, right?" While Ray, completely unfazed, keeps cooking. Will awkwardly admits Ray's been keep surprising him since yesterday. Ray then recall yesterday's events. Will and Stale realize the shocking truth: Ray is not just a monster, but also an ability user. Will reacts in disbelief at the idea of a monster having abilities. Will is visibly shaken, admitting this is the first time he's encountered something like this. Stale then asks what kind of ability Ray has. Everyone watches in stunned silence as Ray uses his ability. Stale senses it clearly: holy energy is flowing into Ray. Stale realizes in shock that Ray's ability is healing. Will then explain healing is an extremely rare holy ability, normally only used by high-ranking guardians. Stale mentally breaks down, yelling that a monster should not have any ability, much less healing. Ray thinking of past, saying it's very funny. Will then casually asks where Noah is. Suddenly both of them notice something. Morning light fills the room. Noah notices Will is there and greets him, while Ray squints at the brightness. Will awkwardly hands Noah some extra supplies, saying they're just additional necessities. Noah asks if there's anything else she needs to do. She explains that she's already been given daily necessities, food, clothes, and even a house to stay. Noah smiles softly and sincerely thanks him for everything. Will downplays everything. He says it's nothing special, he's just doing his duty under orders. He then tells Noah he'll come back later after sunrise because there's a meeting with higher-ups. Noah reflects quietly. She thought surviving would only return her to being powerless, but instead she was met with kindness. She realizes the leader wasn't cruel and even gave her a place to return to. Ray gently pats Noah's head. He then emphasizes that this kindness wasn't given to her, it's something she earned by surviving and enduring. Ray gently encourages her, telling her to build confidence in herself. This is what he really wanted to say to her. Noah looks confused. Ray suddenly presents food. Noah is shocked and asks if Ray made it for her. Ray casually says it's nothing special, downplaying his effort. Noah wonders why Ray is so good at cooking even though Ray is a monster. Ray thinks, I don't know why. Noah tastes the food. She's surprised, it's warm, comforting, and clearly made with care. Her expression softens as she eats. Ray wonders what he brought with him. Will says it's nothing special, just something for practice. The item turns out to be a book. Ray looks at it closely but admits he can't read what's written inside. Noah reacts with surprise. Noah recognizes the book and realizes it's the tale of the great hero Silva. Ray listens quietly and curiously. Ray thought if Noah can read, it's a good opportunity to learn the language. Noah asks if Ray wants her to read the book. Ray asks for letters. She replies if he wants her to teach him how to read. Noah gently explains that she couldn't read or write either, and say, when I was a slave, I guessed the story from pictures, because it was famous. Noah apologizes for not able to help. Ray suddenly panics and yells Will's name. Noah calms him down and says it's okay. She suggests they can just ask the leader later and reassures Ray gently. Ray explains that the book Will has is actually a rare item, only high-ranking guardians are allowed to own such things. In exchange for those privileges, guardians are forced to risk their lives fighting monsters near Makai. Will then tells Noah it's time to go and reassures her not to worry. Ray explains that the system is unfair, here only young men and women are chosen to be guardians. Noah asks what the higher-ups are like. Will answers calmly that they're reasonable people, trying to ease her anxiety. They arrive at the door. Will asks if Noah is ready. She hesitates for a moment, then quietly answers yes, showing her nervousness before stepping into what comes next. The scene opens in a formal meeting room. Several high-ranking guardians are already seated around a large table, creating a tense, authoritative atmosphere. Stale steps forward confidently and greets them, saying he's been waiting. One woman looks irritated and confused, asking to liberate. What does this really mean? The other woman reacts with a teasing smile, clearly amused by what she's hearing. One guardian responds firmly that it's not something important. His serious expression shuts down further discussion. Another listens calmly and agrees, showing acceptance without making a big issue. A little girl speaks hesitantly, asking if there's really any problem with the situation. The guardians discuss the situation lightly at first, some laughing it off, but Stale points out, she knows the real issue with her ability. She points out, knowing something is wrong and choosing not to act is still a problem for her. She tries to diffuse the tension, telling everyone not to get too worked up and suggesting they calm down. Noah stands in the center. Ray in the sack clearly nervous, he admits that facing the higher-ups makes him tense, surrounded by their serious gazes. Stale explains that she'll be working with them from now on, setting a formal but welcoming tone, and asks Noah to introduce herself properly. Nervous but determined, Noah introduces herself and says she is 18 years old, bowing politely and asking for their help. Her stiffness shows how anxious she is. One guardian reassures Noah not to be so rigid and tells her it's fine to think of her like family. Rose steps in with a warm smile and introduces herself gently. Noah listens quietly, still shy but beginning to relax. A man mentions that he's heard she's been through a lot, speaking in a friendly, open way, and introduces himself as Eric and greets Noah casually. Noah reply, "Nice to meet you." Eric laughs it off, keeping the mood light, while the others also greet her. Another guardian says they're friends now and tells Noah to relax. The conversation turns playful. He then points out that person over there, Lilia, she's younger than you. Lilia scolds the man, Albert, for his comment about her age. Lilia casually raises her hand and says she hopes to become friends with her. Albert pushes the girl named Tsubaki. She freezes, stammers, and mentally goes blank, showing how nervous and overwhelmed she is. Tsubaki bows deeply in embarrassment, clearly flustered but trying her best to be polite. Stale steps in smoothly and welcomes her again, easing the tension. Noah answers softly. Ray admits he was worried about whether she'd be accepted, so he feels relieved and happy now. Ray suddenly reacts when Eric points out to Noah about the bag she's carrying. Stale steps in and refocuses the situation, telling everyone this is the main issue and asking Noah to help. Noah hesitates but agrees. Inside the bag, Ray thinks seriously. Facing the higher-ups like this forces him to think carefully. Even as a monster, he can't act carelessly here. The monster stands in the center, surrounded by the high-ranking guardians. In its head, it wonders, can I really make it out alive, showing fear and pressure. Everyone watches silently. The atmosphere is heavy, no one is interrupting, and the monster feels judged from all sides. A close-up of a shocked eye emphasizes the seriousness of the moment. One of the guardians, Lilia, reacts physically, tense and uneasy. Tsubaki suddenly lunges forward and swings her sword at the monster. It's a fast, instinctive attack. Ray doesn't move to counterattack. Inside its head, it calmly realizes, looks like it's impossible, and accepts that it won't be able to avoid what's coming. Will intercepts Tsubaki's sword strike mid-attack. The clash is violent and sudden, sparks fly as blade meets blade. Will throws himself in front of the blow to stop it, showing pure reflex and resolve. The force of the clash knocks Will back, his body spinning away from the center of the room. Noah shouts Ray as the situation escalates. Her expression hardens, she extends her hand, and energy begins to gather around her fingers. Noah reaches out instinctively, but her face shows fear and hesitation. Stale steps forward and stops her. Tsubaki suddenly drops to her knees, trembling. She realizes her monster aura reacted on its own when she detected a monster. Tsubaki bows deeply and apologizes, overwhelmed with guilt and fear, even though she didn't mean to hurt anyone. Noah rushes to Ray and checks on his condition. Ray realizes he couldn't react in time, because Tsubaki's attack was simply too fast. Lilia points out that Tsubaki isn't calm at all, criticizing her stance and saying her way of drawing the sword is flawed. Eric explains that when she detects monster, Tsubaki enters combat mode, and she becomes completely focused. Tsubaki admits she's not good at things like staying calm or holding back, showing her frustration with herself. Stale thanks Will for the help. Will replies that this outcome was predictable given the situation. Ray notices that Noah is in a bad mood. She looks irritated and sharp, clearly unhappy with what just happened. The leader sees that Tsubaki has finally calmed down and decides it's time to move on, saying they should properly begin the explanation. Everyone gathers around the table again. The leader formally introduces the monster, stating plainly, his name is Ray. Ray stays silent, the room going quiet as all eyes turn toward him. The guardians react with surprise. Tsubaki peeks out nervously, while others look shocked. This situation is clearly outside what they expected. They realize something important. Ray isn't just a monster. He understands their words, didn't fight back earlier, and may even be an ability user. One of them admits it's the first time they've ever heard of a monster helping humans. The group discusses Ray's ability. It's clarified that his power is healing, and Stale points out that he doesn't act violently. He's not the kind of being they can simply discard. Rose asks, same ability as hers? Ray silently responds by nodding, confirming what they're saying. They also clarify that his healing works on a single target, unlike her AoE-type healing. The realization sinks in, even single-target healing is extremely valuable. One guardian reacts with disbelief, saying that being able to do this freely is incredible, while others look shaken by how rare and dangerous this ability could be. Stale asks directly if he can use his healing on Eric and others. Ray quietly agrees, showing no resistance. Internally, Ray points out that the higher-ups' trust in him seems unusually strong, and monsters normally shouldn't be allowed this close, yet he stands right in front of them, and no one feels immediate danger. He thinks a single monster alone isn't a threat, especially compared to everything else they face. Rei reflects inwardly, admitting he couldn't react to Tsubaki during the earlier clash, reinforcing how abnormal her presence and speed really is. Everyone reacts to Rei's performance. Rose praise his ability and admit it's impressive and more practical than hers. Stale explains her ability clearly. It weakens monsters in the area while strengthening allies' endurance at the same time. He notes that her healing ability is especially valuable because it does both at once. Eric joke and reassure Rose that her burden won't get lighter anytime soon because her power is too useful. Rose is embarrassed but clearly acknowledged as important. Rei quietly agrees in his own way. Rei explained that her ability also applies a debuff to monsters, while the holy energy works like a buff for allies. He explains its own ability, it's single target, so while the effect may be stronger than Rose's, it can only affect one enemy at a time. Rose concludes that in battles with many enemies, her area type ability is more practical, especially combined with healing support. She also admits that if Rei were an enemy, it would be extremely troublesome to fight. Rose agrees, saying until Rei can be trusted, it would be better if someone higher ranked keeps an eye on him. Eric explains that accepting Rei here was also his suggestion, showing he had already thought this through. Tsubaki reply, she doesn't have any problems. Albert adds a clear warning, if Rei is a friend, he'll be welcomed, but if he becomes an enemy, there will be no mercy. Lilia says she has already seen the future, so she has no objections, and agrees with keeping Rei under supervision. Everyone gathers around the table and reaches a mutual agreement, officially deciding how Rei will be handled going forward. Rei announces happily that they've been accepted by the higher-ups, though with the condition that they'll be monitored. Noah looks relieved and grateful, clearly happy that things worked out. Lilia asks how this decision will be explained to the others later. Stale explains the plan, when the time comes, you will help me persuade that person, but for now, they'll proceed slowly and carefully. Lilia says that if Rei is safe, has been proven. Lilia praises him, saying he did a great job, and Will thanks her politely. The group talks about how impressive Will's performance was. Taking Tsubaki's attack head-on isn't something a beginner can do. Will admits he is surprised that he pulled it off. The others start to leave together, chatting casually, while Noah remains focused on speaking privately with Stale. Noah quietly asks Stale if they can talk for a moment, looking a bit serious. Noah snaps back, saying she didn't expect him to put Rei in danger like that, and asks why he didn't warn us about this situation. Stale calmly says it was something she should have expected and apologizes for not explaining it beforehand. Noah looks shaken and hesitant. Rei reassures her internally that this is normal for them to react like that, but she's clearly upset and conflicted. The mood shifts to something mundane. Noah asks if the supplies Will brought were ordered by Stale, and he casually confirms it. Noah shows a book and says she can't read it, asking him to explain what it is. Rei suddenly reacts loudly internally, saying that giving that book to Noah to make a mistake on Noah, I will never forgive you. Stale looks confused and admits he doesn't really know about that book. Stale then notices Will. Stale realizes something and smirks, saying he understands now. Rei notices Stale smiling, and asks what's with his smile. I'll brush you too. Stale explains that the book is probably a gift from Will, since Will always looks out for Noah. She tilts her head, repeating Will's name, still trying to process it. Rei then bluntly says the gift itself has no real value for Noah, but the intention behind it is good, making it clear the issue isn't malice, just thoughtlessness. Rei loudly say, young man, I forgive you. Will looks confused, not understanding what Rei is doing. Stale tells her not to worry too much about it. Noah says she doesn't have a problem with Will. Then Noah proposes a compromise. Later, Stale will read the book for Noah and Rei together. That way, everyone's even and there's no misunderstanding. Stale agrees, saying alright, showing he accepts Noah's condition. Noah smiles, clearly happy and relieved. The mood softens, and the conflict ends peacefully. Rei excitedly declares he wants to learn letters. Outside the building, Noah introduces herself. A girl cheerfully introduces herself as Julia. After he returned, the Guardian came to watch Rei. Rei is hiding upstairs with Lilia, who is watching over him. Rei admits he can't relax at all, showing his tension and caution despite everything seeming calm on the surface. Rei thinks it turned out to be crowded on the first floor. Lilia explains that before Noah arrived, they were only guarding the southern area with 47 people. Lilia smiles and says that because of this, new members are very valuable and should be properly welcomed. Right after saying that, Lilia suddenly turns aggressive toward Rei, snapping at it, and say you are different. She adds quietly that, maybe just for now, hinting that things could change later. A loud, energetic man bursts in dramatically, pointing and shouting that this is the place and announcing that the person he heard about is their new friend. Noah and the others are caught off guard, staring in confusion and surprise at the sudden entrance. Lilia immediately reacts with annoyance, realizing that a troublesome person has arrived. The loud man rushes in, excitedly calling out Noah's name. He introduces himself as Ruah and immediately asks Noah for her name, acting overly familiar and energetic. Ruah suddenly leans in aggressively and asks how strong Noah is, his expression intense and confrontational. Ray is completely confused, tilting its head with question marks, while Lilia reacts nervously, sensing trouble. Lilia angrily scolds Ruah for barging into someone else's house without permission and for being rude. Ruah laughs it off, saying it's no big deal and that he's fine with being blamed. Ruah suddenly shifts focus, saying there's something more important. He notices Noah is there and gets excited again, ignoring Lilia's anger. Ruah demands to know Noah's power. Noah, confused, asks what he means by power. Ruah insists it's strength, nothing more and nothing less, setting up his obsession with measuring how strong she really is. Noah looks uneasy and hesitant, clearly uncomfortable with the question about her strength. Noah explains that when she talks about strength, she doesn't mean raw power. She says she's not especially strong in that sense. Ruah reacts with surprise, wondering if there's a real difference in what they mean by power. Ruah accepts her answer but still insists. Since he can't judge her strength just by words, he says he wants to measure her power directly, setting up a confrontation. Ruah suddenly lunges forward, excited and aggressive, shouting at Noah to fight him. Noah looks shocked and confused by his intensity. Noah is left staring, clearly unsettled and unsure what to do next. Meanwhile, Ray upstairs, wondering what is happening down there. Ruah gets even louder and impatient, demanding to know Noah's power. Lilia steps in front of Noah, scolding Ruah and telling him to ask Stale properly if he wants to fight. The situation is forcefully shut down. Ruah gets slammed onto the table and told to stop. Julia drags Noah away to calm things down, apologizing to her, while Lilia grumbles that she's busy and you will come back later. Ruah is shown being overly aggressive and loud, with others commenting that he always acts like this with newcomers. It's implied Will used to be a victim of this behavior too. Noah wonders if she can refuse, but the others suggest there's no harm in trying. Another girl asks what Noah plans to do, and whether she wants to fight. Lilia explains this is actually a good chance to measure Noah's strength as a guardian. Lilia admits she's just annoyed by how things escalated, then told Noah to quietly think it over and accept it, saying trying this might be a good idea. Noah asks them to wait and heads upstairs, telling them to give her a moment. Ruah eagerly agrees to fight and gets fired up. Ruah takes that as her getting ready and excitedly says he'll wait at the training area, then runs off. Lilia tells him to let Noah finish speaking first, showing Noah is still uneasy about the situation. After he leaves, Noah sighs and asks Ray if he have listened to the conversation. Noah asks Ray what he thinks of this situation. Ray explains that when dealing with people like Ruah, it's sometimes better to go along with their requests for now. Ray then thinks of her future. Ray tells Noah that she also needs to understand how strong she actually is, not just rely on others. Noah holds the armor Ray has given and asks if that means Ray agrees with her fighting. Ray added that Noah should gain real combat experience so she can judge danger properly herself. Noah finally agrees to try. She smiles with resolve, saying she'll give it a shot since she's already a guardian. Lilia tells Ray to take care of the house, meaning he can't watch. Noah says she'll go ahead first. Ray watches her leave, a bit surprised and quiet, as Noah heads out toward the training area. Ray complains that he really wanted to see Noah fight. The scene shifts to a wide view of the training grounds where people are gathering, while word spreads that Noah and Ruah are about to battle. Ruah excitedly announces that Noah has arrived and says he's been waiting for her. Noah appears calm but slightly tense as she steps forward. Someone asks if Noah is ready. She looks nervous and hesitant, clearly feeling the pressure of the situation. Lilia encourages Noah to just do her best and use all her strength. Ruah confidently tells her to go all out against him. After a brief pause, Noah quietly agrees. Noah looks nervous while Ruah loudly reassures everyone that this is just training and that he'll hold back. Lilia steps in and explains the rules clearly. The fight continues until one side gives up, or she says stop. Noah quietly agrees, still tense, while Ruah answers enthusiastically and confidently, clearly excited to start the match. Lilia shouting for them to begin. The fight starts. Ruah rushes straight at Noah at high speed. Ruah leaps high into the air, closing the distance in a single jump. Noah raises her arms defensively, shocked, realizing how insanely high Ruah's jump and speed are. Ruah then ready to throws a powerful punch aimed directly at Noah. He suddenly stops mid-air, with Noah's ability. Ruah notices he's floating, and concludes that this must be Noah's ability. Suddenly Noah noticed something. He broke free from her control and charges again with full force, clearly unharmed and more aggressive. He comment, she is still weak, and wants Noah to show more of her power. Noah activates her magic, calling out earth magic and aiming it downward at Ruah while he's attacking. The ground turns into mud beneath Ruah, his charge is forcefully dragged down and smashed into the softened earth. And using her telekinesis he pulls his legs upward, trapping him. Ruah twists his body and slams himself into the ground, using brute force to break free from the mud trapping him. Noah backs away slightly, reacting with strain and caution as Ruah regains full control and prepares to continue attacking. Ruah stands up from the mud, shaking it off. He praises Noah's fighting style and calls it interesting. He's grinning wildly, clearly enjoying the fight and getting excited. Noah clenches her fist and thinks to herself, even with magic, she still can't bring Ruah down. She realizes he is neutralizing her telekinesis with raw physical power again and again. The two face each other at a distance. Noah hesitates, wondering if there's really no other way to deal with him. Stale calmly analyzes the situation, noting that telekinesis is dangerous especially in city area places full of objects. Julia then point out, the training ground is almost empty. Stale wonder what she is going to do. She decides she has to try something, even if it's uncertain. As she gathers power on her hands, Noah spreads her hands and uses telekinesis to lift and scatter small rocks around the field. Ruah immediately charges straight at her without slowing down. The people watching realize she's controlling gravel. They note that while the stones aren't huge, there are a lot of them. Noah's focuses, she thinks to herself that she has to create an opening somehow, no matter how. Ruah keeps rushing forward, calmly analyzing the situation. He realizes that when he dodges or reacts, there will inevitably be a brief opening somewhere, and Noah is trying to exploit that moment. Noah directs the flying gravel straight at Ruah. He blocks with his arms, taking repeated hits head-on instead of dodging. Noah looks shocked, not expecting him to endure the attack like that. The onlookers react in disbelief. They realize Ruah is relying purely on physical strength and toughness, not technique or defense. Ruah keeps pushing forward through the pain, clearly hurt but unfazed. He taunts Noah, implying that pain won't stop him and that this kind of attack won't be enough. Eric comments that they personally wouldn't take that approach, but admits that with Ruah's ability, it actually fits him. Ruah activates body enhancement, powering up his body. He confidently says, this won't take long. Noah looks strained and acknowledges it, his power really is strong, but she notes it's still crude and straightforward. Ruah openly explains his ability. It directly boosts his physical strength. He's laughing, completely sure of himself. Ruah smirks and taunts her, saying his power is simple, durable, and perfectly suited to overwhelm her. Noah admits he's right about his ability. Noah keeps dodging Ruah non-stop. The onlookers are shocked she's still holding out instead of surrendering. The observers remember that Noah only awakened her ability 2 days ago, making her performance even more surprising. The realization fully sinks in. Noah really is a brand new ability user, which makes her endurance and control impressive, but also worrying. Noah continues fighting, clearly inexperienced but pushing herself hard. They call her a strong rookie. The observers notice Noah is clearly exhausted and suggest stopping the fight, but they decide to trust Lilia's judgment as the supervisor. The fight continues. Noah struggles to keep her balance while Ruah presses forward aggressively. Noah is sent flying back by the blow, showing that her fatigue has finally created an opening Ruah could exploit. Ruah finally thought he will lands a clean hit, shouting gotcha. Ruah charges in again with a heavy attack, confident he's cornered Noah. Ruah is shocked, realizing something is off about her movement. It's revealed that Noah is using her ability on her own body to move, boosting or redirecting herself with telekinesis instead of just throwing objects. Ruah grins excitedly, saying it's getting interesting, but Lilia steps in and declares the match should stop here. Lilia firmly announces the result. Ruah is the winner and physically stops him before he can continue. Noah is exhausted and urgently asks for it to stop, barely holding herself up. Ruah is dragged away while still hyped and noisy, as Lilia shuts him up before he can say anything unnecessary. Eric and Stale praises Noah, saying her last move was a very good idea and that she did well. Ruah grins widely, praising Noah's power and thanking her for the fight. He's clearly satisfied and excited. Noah drops to her knees, completely drained. She looks confused and quietly wonders if it's really over. Noah admits she's exhausted. Ruah is dragged away, still noisy and energetic, while everyone agrees this much effort was more than enough for her first real fight. The others praise Noah for doing well and managing to fight Ruah at all. They say that alone is impressive. Lilia stands beside Noah and calmly tells her that she fought very well. The training ground is quiet again, showing the fight is truly over. One of the observers asks Noah how she managed to move like that, They say she's gained something very valuable from this fight. The others praise her warmly, telling Noah she did an amazing job. Noah looks surprised and a little shy as the realization sinks in that her effort is being recognized. Noah is being helped up by the others. She looks confused and embarrassed, wondering if they're praising her. She says she doesn't really understand why, but she's clearly exhausted. She admits she feels extremely sleepy, showing how drained she is after the fight. Ray's figure bluntly appears as she remembers his cooking. She says that, when she goes home, she will ask Ray to make food. They realize Noah has gone quiet. Then someone noticed that Noah has fell asleep, ending the scene with a calm, gentle moment after everything that happened. Ray lies down and sighs, thinking quietly. He is worried about Noah, because she has gone to spar. Sounding a bit worried and thoughtful, but suddenly Ray noticed something. Someone then mentions that the watch duty has been rotated from Lilia to her. Ray reacts in surprise, not expecting that. The girl kneels politely and introduces herself as Tsubaki Aranami, apologizing for what happened in the earlier meeting. She looks nervous but sincere. Ray wonders when she started being here and why she looks so tense. Tsubaki sits stiffly in front of him, clearly uneasy under his gaze. Ray listens quietly and repeats her name in his head. Even though he has forgotten many things, her name feels familiar and sticks with him for some reason. Ray then remembers, Tsubaki is already 22 years old. Despite her youthful appearance, the fact clearly surprises him. He continued, even though she looks young, she is actually 1 year older than Stale. In other words, among all the guardians of the southern region, she is the oldest. Ray observes Tsubaki closely and thinks that once she enters combat mode, her mind becomes completely focused, shutting everything else out. Ray remembers a past moment in battle and realizes it feels exactly like back then, when everything narrowed down to a single instant. He recalls how in his past life players used to describe that state and realizes he's now feeling it directly through his own body. In-game, she moves forward with overwhelming sharpness, earning the name Samurai Cyborg. Meanwhile, Tsubaki hesitates and softly calls out to Ray. She suddenly asks Ray if he is good at magic, which catches him off guard. Tsubaki then shyly admits she's not good at magic, and asks if Ray could teach her magic. Ray thinks internally, against monsters, chasing in close-range fighting suits are better than using magic. He also wonders how would he even teach magic to her. Tsubaki then shyly says, if you use magic directly, that is enough for me. Tsubaki activates her ability. Magical patterns appear, and she says she can see things using her ability, showing she's analyzing something beyond normal sight. Ray reacts and realizes what's happening. This is Tsubaki's ability at work. Tsubaki activates her ability, Heavenly Eye. Magic circles spread around the room as the ability turns on. The ability lets her see in all directions, 360 degrees, like multiple surveillance cameras watching from different angles at once. Ray realizes that this ability isn't just wide-ranging, but also highly detailed and specialized for perception. Her vision doesn't stop at surfaces, she can see through things and detect the flow of mana and holy energy. Ray agrees to help and decides to act. He understands Tsubaki wants to trace the mana flow to its source. Tsubaki is surprised but attentive. Ray explains he'll use simple, non-lethal magic. He releases mana from his body, focusing and controlling the output carefully. Ray connects his magic to the magic particles in the air, preparing the spell. The spell activates wind magic, creating visible mana movement so Tsubaki can clearly observe how mana flows. Ray releases wind magic more strongly. The air swirls violently as he demonstrates how mana moves when shaped into a spell. Tsubaki watches closely. She is clearly surprised as the wind flows around her. Ray explains that basic magic is simple, it doesn't require chanting. Encouraged, Tsubaki decides to try it herself, now understanding the fundamentals. The wind gathers around Tsubaki's feet, showing how mana naturally circulates and stabilizes near the ground. She stands stiffly, startled, reacting with a small gasp as she realizes she failed to maintain the spell. Tsubaki's wind magic vanishes immediately after forming. She's confused and surprised that it disappears so fast. Ray comments dryly while watching. Tsubaki looks embarrassed and discouraged by the result like a small puppy. She again regains focus and decides to try again, concentrating harder and adjusting how she connects her mana. She releases the magic once more, but Ray observes that the connection still isn't stable, noting that the mana flow isn't working properly yet. Tsubaki tries to form magic again, but Ray suddenly steps in from behind and guides her arm. She's startled and confused by the sudden contact. Tsubaki panics and blurts out that this isn't what she meant. She's flustered by how close Ray is and reacts loudly. Ray calmly explains he's just trying to help and points out the specific part where the mana should be connected. Tsubaki focuses on what he's showing her. As she concentrates, her eyes light up. She finally sees the connection clearly with her ability and realizes how the mana should link. Close-up of her hand, the mana stabilizes instead of dispersing, showing she's finally controlling the flow correctly. Rei tells Tsubaki to focus on the sensation. He suddenly realizes something and confidently says she's got this. Wind begins to swirl smoothly around her body. She's surprised but excited as the spell holds its shape this time. Tsubaki is overjoyed, realizing she succeeded. The wind spell keeps spinning strongly. Rei praises Tsubaki, saying her intuition is excellent and the result is basically perfect. Rei thinks, after studying magic for so long, it feels great to finally help someone and feel satisfied. She suddenly turns pale and asks how to stop the spell, clearly panicking as the wind continues to spiral out of control. Rei suddenly reacts in shock, sensing something is wrong. He realizes the spell is still active. Rei urgently tells Tsubaki to cut the connection between the spell and the magic particles using his hands. Tsubaki tries, but she's unsure and struggles. Rei thinks if she keeps forcing it, she'll suffer mana exhaustion, symptoms like nausea, dizziness, sensory disturbance, and fatigue. Rei understands the problem. Tsubaki can generate the spell, but she doesn't know how to properly stop it, leaving the wind magic still dangerously active. Tsubaki realizes she's already close to her limit. Rei panics, feeling her mana running out. Rei pulls Tsubaki close while the wind magic rages. He knows that connecting mana directly to another person is dangerous, but Rei admits that he originally wanted Tsubaki to handle the magic on her own, using her own ability, but the situation has gone too far. As the mana surges violently, Rei realizes he can't afford to hold back anymore. He commits to intervening directly, even if it means breaking his own restraint. Tsubaki wonders if Rei is trying to do something. The mana stream reacts strangely, showing something new is happening. Rei apologizes internally, and admits this is his first time doing something like this, asking Tsubaki to endure it for a moment while he tries. Rei confirms partial success. At least now the situation is under control, even if it's not fully resolved yet. The mana flow suddenly stabilizes and changes shape. Rei realizes it's working and reacts with relief. Rei grabs Tsubaki and pulls her away as the unstable mana finally fades and disperses in the air. They land safely. Rei relaxes and says it worked, while Tsubaki catches her breath and thanks him, clearly shaken. He checks her and confirms there's no backlash or rejection reaction. Suddenly someone announced their return. Lilia peeks over the railing, surprised, with Noah behind her, sensing something unusual has happened. Lilia comes down and asks what they're doing. Tsubaki explains she's learning magic from Rei, while Rei calmly greets Lilia. Lilia reacts strongly to the word magic, getting suspicious and a bit upset. Tsubaki looks flustered, while Rei internally notes that this situation might be more complicated than it seems. Rei welcomes Noah back as she flops onto the bed dramatically. Noah is lying on the bed, exhausted and hungry, asking Rei for some food. Rei looks at Lilia, wondering if it's fine to go downstairs to make food now. Lilia relaxes and says there's no one else around. Rei thanks Lilia for being so perceptive. Noah suddenly lunges at Rei and clings to him, yelling his name. Noah desperately hugs Rei and demands food right now. Rei looks confused but resigned, wondering why she's acting like a spoiled child. Rei calmly tells her to wait a moment and promises to cook as fast as possible. Lilia watches from the side while Rei starts preparing food. Rei finishes cooking and sets a simple meal on the table: bread with filling, sliced eggs, and soup neatly prepared. Lilia looks at the food with interest and asks if she can eat too, saying it looks delicious. Rei simply shakes his head in agreement. Tsubaki praises Rei, and Lilia is surprised that he can cook so well. While Rei brings Noah her plate and tells her that the food is ready. Noah reacts as she eats, first surprised, then exhales tiredly, and finally chews happily. She's clearly starving, and eating with relief. Rei watches Noah closely and comments that she looks really exhausted, noticing how drained she is even while eating. Noah keeps chewing slowly, looking worn out. Rei explains that after fighting that strange, over-energetic muscle brain guy, Noah ended up like this, completely spent from the battle. Noah eats the sandwich and smiles softly. She says it's tasty and thanks Rei, clearly comforted and satisfied. Rei quietly praises her for being a good kid. The mood shifts slightly. Lilia watches while drinking, and Rei gently reminds Noah to eat slowly, showing concern for her condition. Suddenly Lilia asks if Rei is Noah's guardian or something. Rei reflects internally. He admits that Noah is definitely biased toward him now, and he's aware she's already relying on him. He acknowledges, almost reluctantly, that he's become her guardian since taking her in. Noah pauses while eating and looks up, slightly confused and thoughtful. She doesn't fully understand the situation, but she's listening and reacting quietly. Rei realizes what's happening to him. He concludes that this feeling isn't logic or duty and wonder if his paternal instincts are starting to emerge. Suddenly Lilia asks Noah about her teacher, making Noah look puzzled. Lilia then say, I intend to find you a fighting teacher, but from what I saw in your fight against Luo, you have a very much talent. But Noah then reply, saying it's her first fight against someone, making Lilia stun in shock. Lilia then continues, saying that even though that guy looked simple, he was actually a high-level close-range fighter. Since Noah could react to that, it proves her potential, and that's exactly why she needs proper training from a teacher. Meanwhile, Rei thinks internally, saying he wants to see Noah fight too. Noah then suddenly asks who will become her teacher, making Lilia and Tsubaki looking at her seriously. After considering it, Lilia says their ability types don't match, so she and Tsubaki is not suitable to teach Noah. Curious, Noah asks about their abilities. Lilia then starts with explaining Tsubaki's ability, Heavenly Eye. She can see everything clearly with no blind spots. Rei admits it's a very powerful perception skill, while Tsubaki tells Lilia to don't explain like that. Meanwhile Noah admits, she doesn't fully understand what it means. Lilia then explains simply, if Tsubaki uses her ability properly, she can easily predict and counter attacks against someone like that meathead. After hearing this, Tsubaki notices Noah looks really shocked, panicked. She tells her to calm down, and say, please do not make expression like that. Afterward Lilia reveals her own ability, Future Sight. She explained, I can see few seconds to minutes into the future. Rei then recall few moments and her past weird reaction. And conclude, so battles for her are based on reading the future and reacting ahead of time, not just normal skill. Noah then calmly responds that, so it turns out, it's not because Lilia-san is impatient or anything, she is acting like that because of her ability. Upon hearing it, Lilia gets embarrassed and snaps, telling her not to talk about that. It's about the fight. Noah then realizes something important. Both Tsubaki and Lilia have vision-type abilities. Meanwhile, Rei watches her quietly as she thinks. Noah subsequently asks a simple but important question: if both abilities are similar, then who is stronger? This sets up a comparison between Tsubaki and Lilia. Lilia then say, Tsubaki can't beat someone who can see the future, confidently declares she would win. But Tsubaki argues that even if Lilia can see many things, she don't believe Lilia can land a hit on her. Rei calmly thinks the result would be 50-50, while the two girls keep arguing noisily in the background. Tsubaki then confidently declare, whatever, I'm sure I will win, while pouting. But Lilia immediately denies it loudly, and Noah stays calm trying to stop both, saying she understands, while Lilia stubbornly insists she'd win even without abilities. Meanwhile, Rei concludes, so Tsubaki is stronger. Noah then asks who will become her teacher, looking a bit unsure but serious. Upon hearing this, Lilia and Tsubaki react quietly, looking at each other. The scene then shifts to outside. We see Noah, while carrying Rei in her back, politely asks someone to be her teacher. Her tone is sincere and a bit nervous, showing she truly trusts this person. We then see Stale with confusing look. He asks, so this is my turn to take care of her? Meanwhile, Rei lament, he is the leader, right? Lilia then explains that among the higher-ups, Stale is the only one with an offensive type ability, so you're the most suitable to teach Noah. Stale reflects seriously about his task, while Rei wonder about his abilities. Stale demonstrates his ability, Holy Energy Conversion, creating a concentrated ball of energy in his hand. It shows he can convert magic into holy power. Rei explains that normal magic doesn't work well on monsters, but holy-based magic is especially effective against them, making it a strong counter. Rei also added that without being able to use magic, this ability alone ain't very useful, but combined together, it become very powerful. Tsubaki also praised this, saying Captain's magic is very high level. Stale then shows overwhelming power, his holy energy fills a huge area, and it's stated that no one can surpass him in large-scale control. Noah is amazed at how much mana and holy energy he has. Rei speaks calmly, saying he's confident in his magic, but admits that if he fought Stale at full strength, even he would struggle. Rei also agrees internally that he's worthy of being a leader. Suddenly Stale remembers he also promised to teach Noah read and write too. He decides to start right away, and tells Noah to go to the training area, and ask Lilia to look after Rei in the meantime. Stale also mentions Lilia to teach Rei basic things like reading and writing, and Lilia then casually says to leave things to her. Upon hearing this, Rei suddenly gets excited, shouting internally that he can finally learn to read and write, and be able to communicate with Noah. Meanwhile, Stale is surprised Noah still has energy even after fighting earlier and remind her to take rest. But Noah rejected his offer and reply, I already got my energy again thanks to Rei's cooking. Stale then questioned himself, a monster is cooking? Meanwhile, Noah continue, saying she used to not rest, but today she accidentally falls asleep. And she remembers the recent events, fighting, eating together, being protected, and realizing this place feels safe and warm to her. Because of this, she decides she wants to become stronger, so she won't lose this new life and the people around her. Upon hearing this, Stale looks at her and smiles softly. Even though he doesn't speak out loud, his expression shows he's genuinely happy and supportive. And he understands her feelings and accepts her decision, while saying he will do his best as her teacher. The scene then shifts to the training area, signaling that this is the start of her growth. To figure out exactly how strong Noah's newly awakened ability is, Stale starts a simple evaluation. He points toward a practice target and tells her to destroy it with her power. Noah immediately agrees. She focuses her attention on the target, gathering energy as the air around her begins to vibrate. Then, the entire target explodes into splinters as her telekinesis smashes straight through it with overwhelming force. Watching the target crumble apart, Stale calmly processes the result. The power itself isn't the surprising part anymore. When asked how she normally uses her ability, Noah gives the most protagonist answer imaginable: she just pours in all her strength. After hearing Noah's ridiculously simple explanation, Stale finally understands the problem. She isn't lacking power, she's lacking technique. So he decides to teach her the basics of how ability users actually fight. Stale creates a small flame in his palm and tells Noah to focus on the flow of holy energy. He then channels holy energy directly into the fire. The energy condenses around the flame as he activates his technique. The moment Stale releases the technique, the fire surges forward with explosive force. Noah watches the demonstration in confusion. Compared to Stale's refined technique, she's basically been swinging a hammer with her eyes closed. Seeing Noah's confusion, Stale decides to explain the foundation behind abilities. He points to his chest and reveals that the same organ used to convert magic power is also responsible for activating abilities. Stale then creates another flame in his hand and gives Noah a different perspective. Instead of treating abilities as some mysterious gift, he tells her to think of them as a person's own unique form of magic, and encourages her, saying if you think of your ability as magic instead of brute force, wouldn't the way you uses it change as well? Noah begins imagining her telekinesis as if it were magic flowing naturally from her body. As she does, holy energy starts gathering around her more smoothly than before. The result is immediate. The target detonates with an even bigger explosion than before, sending fragments flying across the entire training ground. Noah stares at the destruction in complete disbelief. She only changed her mindset for a moment, yet the power she released was noticeably stronger. Even Stale looks surprised. He expected improvement, but not this much improvement from a single explanation. Stale realizes just how absurd her growth rate is. But before he can relax, a familiar face peeks over the edge. Lilia has been watching the entire training session and seems very interested in the results. After seeing Noah's absurd progress, Stale officially ended the lesson. Lilia then mine too. But suddenly Ray asked done already, using his water magic. Then Lilia drops an even bigger surprise for Stale. Ray has already learned how to read, making Stale completely caught off guard because that shouldn't even be possible this quickly. Ray immediately shuts down the assumption. Not entirely, at least. Meanwhile, Noah notices something strange floating nearby. The moment she realizes what's happening, she practically jumps out of her seat. I want to learn how to read too. At the same time, Ray reveals his own reason for studying so hard. Ray writes that he wants to talk with Noah too. It's because she's his favorite Oshi, the very same heroine he admired back then. After hearing that Ray is desperately trying to learn how to read just so he can talk to Noah, Stale completely loses it. He starts laughing and points out that Ray doesn't look like a terrifying monster anymore. He looks like an awkward dad trying way too hard to have a conversation with his daughter. Stale apologizes between laughs and explains that Ray has been dying to talk with Noah this entire time. Meanwhile, Noah pouts because everyone seems to be having fun without including her. Ray immediately writes a response. Hey, I didn't go that far. Afterward, Ray worried it's very late, and thinks she should probably get some rest. But the moment she discovers someone can teach her how to read so she can talk to Ray, Noah becomes completely obsessed with learning. After spending all day learning letters, Ray suddenly gets an idea. So our boy immediately starts experimenting with wind magic. The next thing everyone hears is an absolutely cursed noise exploding through the room. Ray quickly explains his thought process through floating letters. He was trying to see if he could use wind magic to create a voice. Ray admits the truth. This challenge is much harder than he expected. Learning letters was one thing, but creating words with wind magic might take a lot more practice. Stale explains that producing a voice is far more complicated than people think. Creating sound alone requires delicate control, and actual speech is on a completely different level. Noah tilts her head curiously to the sound. When she heard Ray is trying to speak using magic, Noah's eyes immediately light up. The moment she hears Ray might eventually learn how to speak, she gets more excited than he does. And say, that means you'll be able to talk someday, right? You got this. Remembering, this is the same Noah he spent countless hours rooting for, back then when she was just a character in a game. Getting praised by her directly is basically emotional overload. Then, he sincerely responds internally, I'll do my best. Stale decides they've done enough for one day and suggests wrapping things up. Just when Noah is having the time of her life learning, Lilia suddenly freezes and notices something. Her expression immediately turns serious as she quietly points at Ray and gives a simple warning, Ray, hide. A knock echoes through the room. A voice calls from the other side of the door, it's Mitra. Stale calmly answers the door while Ray dives for cover beneath a nearby desk. The door opens, and in walks Mitra. One look at the room tells her everything she needs to know. Lilia's here. And even the newest recruit is hanging around. Stale then gets straight to the point. For someone like Mitra to show up this late, something must have happened. Unfortunately, the answer isn't good. Mitra reveals that the patrol squad has returned. The problem? They came back without the caravan they were supposed to be protecting. Stale doesn't waste a second. He immediately gets up and prepares to leave, entrusting Noah to Lilia while he handles the situation personally. Once Stale leaves, Ray immediately pops back out of hiding. He'd been listening the entire time and instantly wants to know what a patrol squad even is. She explains that the patrol squad is an organization of ability users responsible for protecting the roads connecting Einer's cities. Noah listens carefully while Ray processes the information. If a patrol squad was escorting a caravan, then normally they should be more than capable of handling any ordinary danger on the road. That's exactly what worries Lilia. If the patrol squad returned without the caravan they were assigned to protect, then something went seriously wrong. Stale immediately questions the report. This isn't the kind of information you casually throw around. The patrol members don't hesitate. The answer is absolute. It's been confirmed. Grandal has been devastated. Entire sections of the territory lie in ruins. Buildings are reduced to rubble, fires rage across the landscape, and signs of destruction stretch as far as the eye can see.